Hi, everyone. Welcome to Go Local live from Federal Hill. We are at Cafe Dolce Vita for the special Friday noontime show today. I'd like to welcome my first guest. Usually kicks off the show, former state representative, former deputy secretary of state, now heads up Stages of Freedom. Ray Rickman gives his big view.
Thank you for that introduction, Kate. It's really cool. It's almost like being in Europe today here. But I want to talk about the opposite of something wonderful. It is very strange to live in a society when people come across the border illegally. Let's own up to that. The first thing the government does is rip the children out of the arms of the mother, as young as 4-year-olds. You can't believe America would do such a thing. This is the Trump administration. They've done a little bit of everything. I'm waiting for the United Nations to denounce us for this really unbelievable government policy and act. There are up to 15,000 children in 100 concentration camps. Now, that sounds like a harsh term, and they're trying to talk about how nice they are. But I don't think a 4-year-old sees anything as nice, a 5-year-old, a 6-year-old, when they, a few minutes earlier were with their parents and now they're alone. They are stripped of their family. I think it's the most disgusting act that this administration has done yet. And it's done some disgusting acts. Now, it appears that even conservative members of the House and the Senate are beginning to speak up against this. But speaking is one thing and acting is another. This Congress has the ability to put a stop to this public. I just shake my head. Lately I've become a child advocate, and I didn't think I'd be advocating for children from south of the border because I'm normally advocating for Rhode Island children, both in education, in recreation, in health. But today, it's my hope that you will call your two United States senators and your two members of Congress and ask them to bring legislative intervention on behalf of the children south of the border. Finally, let me tell you that this is regular old discriminatory racism. They capture probably only 20, 30 people a day coming across the Canadian border. They do not snatch their children from them.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Go Local live from Federal Hill. It's a great show today. I'd like to welcome my next guest on, Democratic gubernatorial candidate Matt Brown. Thanks for joining today.
Thanks for having me, Kate.
I appreciate your coming on. It's been certainly a busy week for you with a number of announcements. So let's go through what you've been putting forth this week. Let's start with the pro-choice and the women's rights issues that you put a lot of national people on board with this letter.
Yeah, so we had a letter that came out this week from Gloria Steinem, Kate Michelman, who's was the longtime head of NARAL, the National Pro-Choice Organization, and over 50 women from across the state and different parts of the country who believe in reproductive freedom. And they wrote a letter saying that they were endorsing me and my campaign because I've been and will continue to be an unequivocal and consistent and strong leader for reproductive freedom. Because they wrote it because reproductive freedom is really under attack by the Trump-Pence administration all across the country. And they wrote it because our current governor, Governor Raimondo, campaigned as pro-choice, but as governor, she put in place what the ACLU has called the first anti-choice legislation in 15 years that created all kinds of restrictions for women in the state to get access to reproductive care. So I would repeal those restrictions and would fight vocally and unequivocally for the Reproductive Health Care Act that's being considered now until we get it passed. And so it was a great show of support from Gloria Steinem, Kate Michelman, and others for that position.
And so what's the reaction been to this? It was, again, a very strong letter. What have you been hearing from folks?
Excitement and enthusiasm for someone who is going to be vocal and outspoken and strong on these issues, especially now when women's rights and reproductive rights are so under siege by the Trump-Pence administration. And look, even here in Rhode Island, the state is 81% pro-choice, but we rank as an F by national pro-choice organizations in terms of the restrictions put on reproductive freedom. So women's rights are under attack, and the attack of and the rights of so many others in our country are under assault as well. So there was a lot of enthusiasm for the support from these women for strong leadership to protect these rights.
That's just one of the many announcements you made this week. Just recently, it was yesterday, that you would do licenses for immigrants statewide. Now, I had the opportunity to have the governor on GoLocal Live yesterday. She talked about when she had said she would do the executive order, why she hasn't. She says executive orders can be undone. She thinks it should be done at the assembly level. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, first of all, again, this is a community, the immigrant community here and across the country that is really under assault by the Trump administration. We see the separation of families at the border. And so I want Rhode Island to be a place that is welcoming to immigrants. This was a state that was built by immigrants, waves of immigrants coming here. And we need to be a state that is very welcoming to immigrants. This is a common sense issue. Immigrants are here, and they should all be able to drive to work. It's good for the economy. It's good for them. They should be able to drive to take their kids to school and pick their kids up. So this is just a basic common sense measure that we need to take. In terms of how to do it, could be done by legislation, but I've said if necessary, I'll do it as an executive order. I know Governor Raimondo, who pledged that she would do an executive order when she ran in the election, did not do that, did not keep that promise. And, you know, it may be difficult, but most of the important things that need to be done are difficult. That's what political leadership is all about. Political leadership only counts on the difficult issues. And so I'm committed to doing it.
So do you think an executive order would be the best approach if another administration came along and had the opportunity to undo it? What would sway you sort of one way or another?
Well, it's not either or. I mean, the best approach is to get it into law because that's the ideal approach. But if that can't happen, then you do an executive order. And doing an executive order does not just stand alone. It starts to create the pressure, the political will to force the issue forward and hopefully force it into legislation. And so it's a critical step to take if we can't get the legislation, if or until we can't get the legislation.
Let's talk more legislation happening actually right now up at the Rhode Island State House. We're in the waning days of the assembly here. There's still speculation that the Pawtucket Red Sox could have a piece of legislation. There's been recently amended legislation which leaders haven't actually seen yet. What are you keeping an eye on as it pertains to the Paw Sox?
Well, my feeling is, as you know, that Governor Raimondo's signature economic development strategy is taking money from taxpayers and giving it to corporations. And I think that's not real economic development. If we have to pay for it with taxpayers' money, that's not real, sustainable, lasting economic development. It gets you a good press conference and a, quote, quick win where you can announce a corporation is opening an office here. But lasting economic development is going to be built on small businesses. It's going to be built on the future of where the economy is going to be. That's clean energy. That's why I'm opposed to the frack gas plant that Governor Raimondo has pushed for building in the forest up in Burrville and making Rhode Island the first fully clean energy state in the country. And we need to build up a robust local healthcare system. That's a huge part of the future of the economy and all kinds of jobs. And Governor Raimondo, by slashing Medicaid, has hurt the local healthcare system. And now we've seen hospitals closing. We're seeing large hospitals looking at selling themselves to out-of-state corporations. To not have a local healthcare system would be bad for the quality of care, bad for the people of the state, and certainly bad for the future of the economy. So I look at building the economy not through corporate subsidization by the taxpayers, but by building on real, sustainable, long-lasting economic development, like healthcare, clean energy, and small business.
So you mentioned in the healthcare arena the out-of-state interest. We know that Partners is moving forward with Care New England here. It's June, and we'll see what happens between here and November. If you were elected, how would you handle that if that ball has already gotten down the road of having Partners come in?
Well, we'll have to see where it is, but it would be much better for this state if we had a local healthcare system. Anyone who is experienced, as we have in my family personally, when a local, old-fashioned provider is bought by a corporation, you see the quality of care change. You see it's not the same as having your local healthcare system taking care of you and your kids and your family. So I think it's better quality of care if it's local. I think, and it's also better for the economy. If the healthcare system starts to go to Massachusetts, we're going to start see ourselves driving up Route 95 to get procedures. 2 hours up and back can be worse at rush hour. We're also going to start to see jobs gravitate, doctors, nurses, and other staff up out of state. So I would really want to do everything possible to keep our local healthcare system robust and vibrant.
So we have you here. It's a Friday noontime show. The weekend's going to be underway. What are we going to see from you moving forward now, Matt? Policy announcements on the road. Where are you going to be?
Well, first of all, I'm going to be in Rhode Island. You know, Governor Raimondo has spent 3 months out of the last 17 out-of-state fundraising. While, by the way, there's been just a series of as you know, mismanagement disasters. So I'm not going to be out-of-state fundraising. I'm going to be here. And certainly if I'm elected governor, I will be here to manage the state and not have the kind of financial mismanagement, organizational mismanagement like UHIP, et cetera, right up to this nursing home disaster that the legislature had to bail her out of with this budget. So I will be here. And on the campaign trail, we're going to be going around the state. We had set a goal of doing 30 events in 30 days across the state. I think we're now on track for more than 40. So this
40 events in 30 days.
Yes, that's correct. No, we didn't add the number of days to the month. We added events to the days, exactly. So multiple events on days. And this campaign is going to be grassroots. So it's going around the state, meeting with people of different backgrounds, talking about issues. You know, doing the 30-second ads, that's not democracy. That's just marketing. Now, that's part of campaigns. You got to get your message out in that way, but you have to have conversations. You got to sit and talk with people and not just have them listen to you, but you have to listen to them and hear their ideas. I do not have all the ideas. No one person has all the ideas. We need to talk to each other and get behind the best ideas that we have, and that's what we're doing in this campaign.
Well, Matt, I appreciate you taking the time to come up to the Hill here as you're doing 40 events in 30 days.
Well, now I got to go find some good food up here for lunch.
Plenty of good food up here. The sun is starting to come out on the Hill. The weekend is starting to get underway, and I appreciate you taking the time to come on. Matt Brown, thank you so much.
Thank you, Kate.
Okay. We'll let you walk off, and we'll welcome our next guest here onto Live. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Go Local live from Federal Hill. As we're doing each Friday this summer, taking the show on the road to show you the best that Rhode Island has to offer. Speaking of the best that Rhode Island has to offer, Bob Wickham, thanks for joining me.
I wouldn't go that far.
In studio today here at Cafe Dolce Vita. I want to thank them for hosting us here.
I'm the best that 125 Everett Avenue has to offer. That's about it.
Well, we look forward to
limited market.
We look forward to seeing your upcoming column, but so much has taken place since we've spoken last.
Yes, that's right.
Let's talk a little bit about your reaction to Trump and North Korea.
Well, it's a disaster. The Kim family, all three of them, this is the third in the generation of mass murdering tyrants who've killed millions of their own people. They make these promises, these very vague promises in return for, they won't happen.
So you are not
I think it's cosmetic. I think they may hide some nukes and rockets and mountainsides and that kind of thing. I just don't think much is going to come of this thing. I think it's just temporizing. And I think the long-term goal of Kim Jong-un is to take over the entire Korean peninsula, which he may well. There's also nothing about this huge installation of artillery he's got right about 35 miles north of Seoul. Seoul's got 20 million people, and that's not coming down. So the whole thing is boondoggled, in my view.
It was interesting to see that South Korea did not know that.
He blindsided. He didn't tell the Japanese. The Japanese,
that they were going to be doing away with
the two major allies. That's right. Never told them. But that's because he doesn't believe in the values of our allies. He's just a sociopath. Frankly, it's not an ideological statement. As you know, it's been characterological. My problem with Trump has been he's a lying, cheating crook. It's just.
So you've got no faith in what's going to transpire.
None.
Because he's been.
I mean, something could happen. It's kind of like the line where even Hitler built the Autobahn. That stuff. I mean, something good could sort of accidentally happen. It could happen. Kim could be assassinated, and somebody more reasonable could come along and make a deal with the West. But speaking of the West, Trump doesn't even believe in the West, the values of the West. He's a couple of days before Singapore. What did he do? He went to Ottawa and insulted our closest allies, who believe in liberty and free markets and all this stuff.
Well,
he likes dictators. It makes him. He's this little guy. He likes dictators, but dictators make him feel like a big guy.
And he did have one of his staff, one of his administration say there was a fresh place in hell for Justin Trudeau, which they've apologized.
That's ridiculous. Yeah,
but let's talk a little foreign relations. One of your favorite topics, actually, the Chinese and what we saw with the Naval Undersea Warfare Center.
Oh, yeah.
The hack of the
that's sort of standard operating procedure, though. I can't get too upset about that. All foreign countries spy on others. And if they can grab a lot of industrial, do a lot of industrial espionage, so be it.
Should they be punished? Should China
be
punished?
Maybe whoever let us be hacked should be published, and should be punished in this country. You expect foreign powers to do that. The Chinese are our enemies, the Russians are our enemies, and they're doing everything they can to steal as much of our stuff as they can.
Not surprised, not shocked.
No.
Well, we'll see what happens
not surprised at all. They're carrying out the national mission of becoming the power numero uno. Yeah, and they're well on their way.
So breaking news as we sit here, Paul Manafort.
Yeah, he's Mr. Manafort is being sent to the slammer by the judge, probably because of alleged witness tampering, communicating with other witnesses in the Russia case. And the interesting thing about that will be, in the isolation in his lonely cell room, will he feel abandoned by the Trump mafia and start singing? And if he does start singing, it'll be quite a show, I think, quite a piece of music. Because he was in the middle of so much of this stuff, of the corruption of the Trump organization, and of the stuff going on during the campaign, and the collusion with the Russians, the frequent meetings with the Russians, and then the connections of Trump with the Russians, getting a lot of money from them over the last decade or so. Manafort is in the middle of all that. So if he sings, but he may not. He basically said a few months ago he wasn't going to sing. He wasn't going to do anything to betray his statesman.
Could be a whole different scenario now.
That's right. It could be when he's there, and he may feel betrayed because Trump betrays everybody. So he may get the sense, I'm betrayed. He may even have a smidgen of patriotism that this crook, that maybe it's not a good idea that this crook is president of the United States, even though Manafort is a flaming crook too. But there may
Well,
be
he is.
glimmers of
He is
American patriotism.
going
Yeah.
to jail.
Yeah,
So we'll see what happens moving forward there. What can we expect from you on the writing front?
Well, I write. Yeah, I got my cheat sheet. I'm writing about the credit, the mother of all credit bubbles, which were underway now. Household debt is surging. Corporate debt is surging to incredible heights. Companies are borrowing a lot of money to buy back stock, to boost the stock price, which makes the people in the C-suite, the CEO and the CFO, richer. And I think the whole thing is going to pop probably maybe as early as next year, more likely in 2020.
Now, how's it going to impact?
So it's going to be like, I think we're basically the equivalent of 2006 now.
We're getting a lot of chatter about that.
Right.
If we could be heading towards a recession. What else we got on the cheat sheet here?
Well, we have something about pollution in the Westport River, Rhode Island Public Radio, and what do they call it? The New England News Collaborative. Very nice people about the salt marsh islands, the Westport River falling apart. And they talk about nitrogen pollution. They talk about rising sea level. One thing they didn't talk about was the Ocotit Club, which is a very exclusive golf and tennis club on the Westport River, from whose verdant shores, lots of pollution falls into the Westport River. And I think the reason I don't think they talked about it, because I think a lot of people, like in the Westport River, whatever they call it, Preservation Society, is that they're members of the Ocotit Club, and so it's from a kind of social life standpoint, it's difficult to complain.
So you're keeping an eye on that. Well,
the Ocotit River.
Sounds like it's going to be a good read. Bob, I appreciate your coming up here
nice
to the
to
Hill
see
on
you.
this special occasion here for Live on the Road. Bob Wickham.
And don't get hit by that credit bubble pop.
Okay, we'll try not to.
Bye-bye.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Go Local live from Federal Hill at Cafe Dolce Vita. I'm Go Local News editor Kate Nagel. I'd like to welcome Anna Jane Yelkin with Protect Families First. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Kate.
Put out the release yesterday with Kristen's Law making its way through the General Assembly, your continued opposition to this piece of legislation. Wanted to have you here on the show to talk about this and what you're hearing from people and why you're so opposed.
Yeah, we continue to stand with the medical community, with public health experts who work on overdose prevention every day, and with the recovery community in opposition to this bill. While we understand the intent behind the bill, we feel like the bill as it stands now is really poorly worded, would really double down on some ineffective drug policies we've been doing for years that put people in prison instead of getting them treatment and help. And that would get really, really low-level people, mostly people who are selling drugs to support their own habit. And we feel like those are not the people we should be going after. We should be going after drug kingpins, drug traffickers, and that this bill would not do that. So we continue to stand opposed.
We've had this issue on Go Local Live before. You talk about it. The letter that had gone out several weeks ago to folks in the healthcare community, with all of this opposition, why do you think the supporters, are able to get the traction that they are?
Yeah, I mean, again, the medical community stands strongly in opposition to this bill and continues to stand so. And we have tried to be around the table, but we have not been able to. We feel like our input has not been listened to. And, we understand that people are suffering and there's pain and people want to do something. And we really understand that. And people want to do something during an election year, especially. And so while we understand that, we just feel like this is not the way to go. This is not the right approach. And just because it's an election year and people want to do something doesn't mean we have to do this.
So we're keeping an eye on Kristen's Law, but talk with us a little bit about Protect Families First.
Yeah, so Protect Families First is a nonprofit that advocates for drug policies and practices that prevent overdose deaths, promote community health and safety, and keep families intact, specifically by keeping people out of prison for drug use, and looks to alternatives such as public health interventions. Yeah.
Has the state, or let's focus here in Rhode Island, made any gains in that approach? We've seen, comprehensive justice reform looked at and pushed through. Has Rhode Island taken any steps? And I know in this opinion, Kristen's Law, in your opinion, would be a step back.
Yes, absolutely. So I'm proud to be from Rhode Island and have other states looking to us as public health experts to address the overdose crisis. Rhode Island has been a leader in taking public health approaches, equipping people with naloxone, the overdose reversal drug, increasing access to treatment, including for people at the prison. And that's actually seen a decrease in overdose deaths. Rhode Island was one of the few states last year that saw a decrease in overdose deaths. We feel like we need to continue on those efforts and not take a step backward and double down on ineffective incarceration-based policies.
Well, I appreciate your taking the time to continue to shine the light on this issue. We're in the waning days of the assembly here, but there's many issues that folks are fighting for. And again, with Protect Families First, fighting against this Kristen's Law and explaining the reasons why. Anna Jane, I appreciate your taking the time
Thank you so much, Kate.
today. I'll let you go. I'll welcome our next guest here on Federal Hill.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to GoLocal live from Federal Hill. I'm GoLocal News editor Kate Nagel. It's been a very politically themed show up here today, and someone who's here to talk some politics with us. Everett Smith, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me, Kate.
I appreciate your coming on because you're going to tell folks a little bit about a campaign that you and other folks are embarking upon to get folks to vote.
Very exciting. So in the wake of kind of the March walkouts and the protests, there's been a lot of talk about getting students engaged with political issues that have a lot to do with them. So in wake of that, I joined with a couple of students, a lot of kids from Classical, a lot of students from the Providence Student Union, and we made this group. It's called REV-RI, that stands for Register, Educate, Vote. And we kind of see that as sort of the three basic steps to getting kids interested and engaged in democracy and the democratic process. So that's been really exciting.
So you've been out and about literally trying to sign folks up. Were you just at Burnside Park?
Yeah. So just the other day, we were in Kennedy Plaza, and then we moved to Burnside Park. We signed up in just under 2 hours, I think about 51 people. We got like 15 volunteers to come out, all kids, all of them under 20, the entire thing organized by students. It was very cool.
Okay, so you were hitting the ground running, again, trying to get people to vote. How many more of these voter registration events do you anticipate doing?
So the elections will be this fall. The primaries are in September. And in order to vote in the elections, you must be registered at least 30 days beforehand. We're working on setting up more registration events, and we'll basically be working until that 30-day deadline. We're busy organizing volunteers, getting people together. We kind of had our flagship registration event, right? So we had to work out a lot of the kinks, a lot of the mishaps, a lot of mistakes. Now that we have the model down, we're looking at doing registration events at least once a month, hopefully once a week, whenever we can get 2 or 3 volunteers together.
So what do you think? What have the lessons learned been so far? What did you wish you knew when you first started?
What did I wish I knew? I wish I knew that you will always invite more people than show up.
That is a truism if there ever was one.
Yeah, it's kind of like an airline, right? Airlines have to overbook their flights in order to fill them.
As long as you're not dragging anyone off the plane.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. Oh gosh. Yeah. But it's been really cool kind of figuring out how easy it is to get engaged in democracy, right? I think a lot of people are disillusioned or they're upset with politics. They think that their voice doesn't matter, that they won't be heard. And I think that's true, but I think it's only true if you don't speak up, right? So it's been really cool meeting a lot of very cool people, meeting you, meeting all kinds of politicians and other activists. People are passionate about change. They want change. They just need to know how.
So you see it a lot nationally, see it a lot here in Rhode Island.
Yes.
What's the best website that folks can find out, or go to Facebook?
Oh, for us, so we have an Instagram account that's Rev Rhode Island, REV Rhode Island. You can follow that. You'll get all the updates you need to know, what we're up to, how you can support, how you can volunteer. I would also suggest for people who want to register to vote or want information about campaigns, turbovote.com is very cool. They're national. You just enter in your postal code, and they'll set you up with everything you need to know to vote this fall.
Well, very good. Well, I appreciate you taking the time. It's been a very politically themed show,
Yes. Yeah,
as a lot of our coverage here at GoLocal is, but wanted to get the youth vote and see what you're going to be up to. So where are you in school? What's next year hold?
So I am a junior. I just finished my junior year at the Wheeler School. That's on the east side. I'll be a senior next fall. I'll be applying to colleges, see where I'm going. But staying engaged in a lot of politics, it's been really exciting.
It certainly sounds like it. It sounds like you're going to be hitting the ground running this summer. I appreciate your coming here to tell folks all about it. We'll put those links up as well. Everett Smith, thank you so much.
It's been lovely.
I'll let you go, and I'll welcome our last guest here live at Federal Hill. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to GoLocal live from Federal Hill. It's been a full lunchtime show today. Ray Rickman, Bob Whitcomb, Anna Jane Yokin, Everett Smith, and Democratic gubernatorial candidate Matt Brown, former Democratic gubernatorial candidate, now candidate for state Senate, Paul Roselli. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks so much, and thanks for having me on. It's been a busy day, huh?
It's been a busy day here, but it's been a busy few weeks, months for you on the trail. Been going around talking to all Rhode Islanders, deciding that in the best interest, as your release said, of the state, putting your support behind Matt Brown and now looking at the Senate. Talk with us about how you came to this decision.
Sure. So many months ago, way back in November 2017, I decided that I had enough with the current administration, and that's the key there. Had enough with the arrogance and the false promises and particularly gas infrastructure projects, both in the Northwest Territories of Rhode Island and Longfields Point in Providence. And continued that effort from November right up until about a week ago. During that time, you're right. I went all across the state trying to make sure that message stayed strong, that message was good, that message was solid. People understood that message, and also people understood that we had a direction. There's a direction here. If we want to make Rhode Island better, if we want to make Rhode Island into a place where people are not ignored, then we needed to change the leadership in Rhode Island. And that was the goal. That was the mission. We have to blame somebody here. We have to blame Paul Fogarty. Paul Fogarty came along and said he was going to retire. Paul Fogarty is Senate District 23 in the northwest corner of Rhode Island. That comprises a little bit of North Smithfield, Gloucester, some of Gloucester, and most of Burrillville. And Paul Fogarty announced that he was going to retire. Now there's a certain amount of realism in my campaign. And the realism was that I had very little money
but a lot of support. And we did really well. I mean, we took this thing from pretty much below zero to somewhere where we're hovering around 18-20% if the primary was held today. But looking forward, we knew that in the general election, because of money, and that's all it was, because of money, not the message, and time too. Maybe if I had another 2 years or so, things might have gotten a little better. Paul Fogarty came along, and there was an honest to goodness chance of getting that seat and making it the type of seat, the type of place where we can take that message to the Senate. The Senate needs help. Both the House needs the help too, but the Senate in particular needs help. So that was the impetus. And if you want to blame somebody, blame Paul.
Blaming Paul Fogarty retiring this year.
Sorry, Paul.
So what have your conversations been with Matt Brown this past week? You referenced him in his campaign in your release. What have you guys been talking about?
Yeah, so the message was always, let's put Matt Brown aside for just a second. The message was always to change the leadership, and that was the message that took place when I announced that I was going to change from going for the governor's position to the Senate seat. So we need not just new leadership, going from an old style leadership to an older style leadership didn't make any sense to me. But new leadership that'll use some of the progressive thoughts that takes us a little bit more into not ignoring people, turning the corner when it comes to gas infrastructure, so we can finally get out of this fossil fuel mess that we've dug ourselves into for the past almost 100 years. And a few other things like universal health care, making sure that education is appropriate, not only giving those folks who are legally here and those folks who are applying for legal status, not only driver's licenses, but in my campaign, it was not only driver's license, but Social Security cards too. Let them pay into the system. Look, I'm on Social Security now, so I need all the money that I can get. I can get. So those conversations with Matt have taken place along those lines. That we need new leadership. He's in a good position right now to hopefully get through the primary and make his way to November.
So will we see less of you in Providence? You're going to be focused there up in the state Senate district. You were really pounding the pavement all around Rhode Island. Will we see you out and about talking about the gubernatorial race still moving forward?
Absolutely. One of the things I'm going to focus on is absolutely the Senate District 23. We're going to try to get as much momentum as we can, where the endorsements are coming in quite literally minute by minute, which is really nice for that Senate District seat. We're ramping up our events throughout that district, but I can't lose sight of what a Senate seat is all about. A Senate seat is working with other folks all throughout Rhode Island. I've done that.
Yep.
I've done that both in my environmental capacity and my gubernatorial capacity, working with, and I've been at the Senate and the House more times than I can even care to remember, looking at bills on everything from affordable health care to affordable housing to the environment to a host of things. So yeah, you'll see me around because that's the nature. That's the nature of Rhode Island. Rhode Island is, the smallest state in the union, and we have to know each other. Not that we can know each other, but we have to know each other to make sure that we get the change that we want.
Well, I appreciate your taking the time to come up here to the Hill today as we take GoLocal Live on the road. We've had you on many times before. Yeah. I'm sure we'll have you on moving forward.
Great.
Paul Rosselli, I appreciate your joining us today.
Great, thank you.
I'll let you go. Okay.
Thanks so much.
Okay, everyone, that just about wraps up a GoLocal live from Federal Hill, as we're going to do each Friday this summer, taking the show on the road. It was a full one here. Appreciate all my guests joining us in the studio. Former State Representative Ray Rickman kicking off with his big view. Bob Whitcomb, GoLocal columnist. Matt Brown, Democratic gubernatorial candidate. Anna Jane Yelkin with Protect Families First and why they're still opposed to Kristen's Law. We also had Everett Smith with a group of young Rhode Islanders talking about signing up folks to vote. So very political theme up here on the Hill. And speaking of politics, the The budget is making its way onto the House floor this afternoon up at the General Assembly. So stay tuned to more politics, lifestyle news, and sports on GoLocalProv.com. I'm GoLocal News Editor Kate Nagel.